and welcome back. And today is going to be a little bit of a different episode. It's been a crazy week, which means that today is Thursday, and I'm just now sitting down to start filming the episode that's supposed to release publicly on Sunday, but also supposed to release early for the Patreon supporters whose names are scrolling by right now. Thank you guys so much. But it's supposed to release early for them tomorrow. So clearly that's not going to happen. I'll be happy if I can get this up in time for Sunday's release. So why is it so late before I've been able to film this? Well, it turns out last Saturday night, our cat, Sue, got into a fight. And our cats are outside cats. And apparently he's a lover, not a fighter. So he lost that fight. We think he got into a fight with another cat. It put a puncture wound in his left shoulder and ripped about a hole about the size of a 500 yen piece in his left rear hip. Sunday, I brought him in and had to take care of him all day because vets are closed on Sunday. Monday, we rushed him to the vet. They said it was fairly common. They're not too worried about it, but they put a tube in so that it could drain out, and we had to deal with necrosis and a whole bunch of gross medical stuff is going on. But that pretty much indisposed me for all of Sunday, all of Monday. Then Tuesday, I had to go to the dentist. That didn't go well, which honestly is not that surprising. I haven't been to the dentist in years. It's time to start fixing things, and dentists suck, man. So that put me out of commission all day Tuesday. And then Wednesday, Mrs. Usagi flew back from Japan, where she'd been for the last 3 weeks. So I was very happy to have her come home. But that means that today is Thursday, and I'm just now sitting down in front of the camera. So we're not going to do anything too crazy today, but I thought I would give you guys a little bit of an update on all of the different projects that are kind of concurrently going on, because there's a lot of stuff going on and kind of hard to keep our head around what's happening where. So we're going to take a quick look at what we've got coming up for the Centurion, the big guy, after VCF. And then we'll take a look at the mini Centurion, which is what we've got to finish before VCF. And then I've learned a lot more about a lot of the PDP 11 stuff that I got in the previous episode. So we'll give you a short update on some of that stuff. And then I got a couple other cool small things that I want to show you guys. So, well, let's start with the Centurion here. Once we get back from VCF, we're going to get back into the primary Centurion system here because there's still a lot of stuff that we want to do to it. One of the first things that I need to do is I need to get the floppy installed into this system. Right now I've got the floppy sitting on its kind of own separate thing because I was using it on both systems. But I really want to get that floppy mounted right here in the center like Centurion used to do, which means that we need to install proper power supply stuff in there that is switched with the main switch here. Also, we need to build a brand new plate that goes here that has a hole cut out of it because I'm not going to cut a hole in this one. I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy. I also need to build a custom tray, and I would like for it to slide out. And there's a member of the Patreon who has a metal fab shop, and I'm going to get in touch with him, and I think he's going to be able to hook us up with something really special. So more coming on that when we get to it. For that chassis over there, we're gonna try and get the Phoenix to rise from the ashes. We don't have a whole lot of hope for the 80 megabytes of fixed platters in there. There's crashes on them, and it's just not worth trying to bring that back to life. But we could potentially turn that into a 16 megabyte removable only drive, which is a massive I don't know, waste comparatively, but 16 megabytes is actually more than the entire Hawk drive, which we are still struggling to fill up. So it's going to be way more space than we'll ever need, but it will allow us to start reading some of those disk packs up there and pulling applications off of them, hopefully. So that's one goal. The slot underneath it right now has the very, very dead parts Hawk drive in it. I'm pretty sure we're not going to be able to bring that one back to life. But also, I don't need two Hawks on the system. This one is fully working with a removable pack, so we can change data out. So I want to build a tape drive. So something, since I'm building it from scratch, we'll do it with probably just normal audio cassettes initially. But that's going to require a custom interface on that side as well that we have to build from scratch, and a custom card that we're going to plug into the backplane here. Now I chose a tape drive because that should be the easiest interface to figure out. As a matter of fact, we're just going to make it look like MUX number 16 essentially. The interface we already are pretty well familiar with because Meisaka has done a wonderful job reverse engineering the MUX card, so we can borrow a lot of ideas from that and build up an interface card for the tape. And then Ren has written some really excellent software that should allow us to store files on tape and read files off of tape. So we should have some pretty unique custom hardware coming for the Centurion, which is really, really exciting. Now the terminal up top here is slated for use with the mini Centurion, so we're not going to do anything with the main system regarding that, but I am going to put another terminal there. I want that to be the IBM Selectric Composer, so it can double as both a terminal as well as a serial printer. Now, speaking of printers, we still have the big printer here. I'm definitely going to get into this as well as the Finch drive behind it. As a matter of fact, whether I do the Finch drive next or the printer next is kind of still up in the air, but that's pretty much the very next thing that we're going to tackle. So top of the list is going to be printer, Finch drive, and getting the floppy mounted in here. And then from there, we'll get into the Phoenix drive and the Selectric and the tape stuff. So that's the current genuine Centurion. But before we can get to any of that, we've got to finish up the mini Centurion over there. And there's a lot that we got to still do on it. The mini Centurion is making pretty good progress, and I think we're on track for having a really exciting machine looking really nicely for VCF East. VCF East, by the way, is coming up very soon. It is April 14, 15, and 16. I think. And well, if you're up in the Northeast, definitely come check it out. This machine is going to be there, as well as the Wang Rider and a couple other small projects that I can stuff in the car. And well, I'm really looking forward to meeting and talking to a bunch of people. So I think it's going to be a ton of fun, and I think it's going to be awesome having this machine there. But the machine has to be looking good, and we're almost there. The hardest part, the most time-consuming part of the entire build for this was the front panel here, and I think I've got it built. It just needs sanding and paint now. It required a lot of effort because there was, well, it's made out of a single sheet of steel, which means I had to measure everything, cut, bend, weld. There's been MIG welding and spot welding going on with this thing. But I think it's starting to come together. We got all the studs mounted for the front panel LEDs here and the switches, and I've got the key power switch on here, just like we would all hope to see on a real Centurion. So all that's missing now are the wood pieces that go down the side here, the wood top, and some side panels. Now the side panels on the genuine machine were made out of just stamped steel or folded steel, but I don't have enough time to get that right, so I'm just gonna rip some MDF or plywood or something like that and give it a couple of coats of white so that way it gets a nice uniform color and you can't see the wood grain anymore. And that's going to be my side panels for VCF. In the future, we may remake those out of metal appropriately. But I think it's going to look really good. For the panels here and the one on the top, I actually have a vinyl, a wood grain vinyl that's going to go over some MDF, and I think that's going to look really close to how the genuine one looks. So, well, if it all goes smoothly, this should look the absolute business for VCF. Now, unfortunately at VCF, I am not going to be able to bring any of the PDP-11 stuff with me. I don't have space in the car for it. And well, none of it's really working at the moment anyways. But there is a lot of really exciting stuff that has happened with the PDP-11 since the last episode. So we'll take a look at some of those next. In the previous episode, we took a look at a massive haul of PDP-11 kit that we got from Mitch in Houston. Mitch, thank you so much. It's so epic. And the fact that there's more coming is even more exciting. But I mentioned in that episode that we had already moved some of that to other enthusiasts' hands. Some of the stuff that I was pretty sure I wouldn't be able to get to in any kind of timely fashion. And I would rather people actually start using these machines than for me to just sit here and hoard them all. So the VAX 11730, one of the 1144s, and a VAX 8350 with the accompanying cabinet all went to a good friend of mine, David. Now he has since repatriated the 1144 to another good friend of ours who ironically lives pretty close to me, so I could have just delivered it directly. But they're all still in the hands of people that are close and near, so I'm going to be able to see these machines in the future. But David is not one to just take things without saying thank you, and his way of saying thank you was to hook me up with this beautiful machine sitting on top of the cabinet here. This is a DEC Rainbow 100, and I've known that David had this for a while, and I've been eyeing it. I said, if you ever want to sell that, let me know, because I would love to get my hands on a DEC Rainbow. And he said, well, instead of selling it, how about I trade you for the 1144 and 11730? And so I am really excited about this machine because it is essentially 3 machines in one. It has an x86 processor in it, so it can run DOS. It has a Z80 processor in it, so it can run CP/M. And it has a serial terminal mode. So you can just hook RS-232 into the back of it, drop into terminal mode, and it can act as a terminal for a bigger machine, like say an 1144. So the plan is to put the 1144 in the top of this chassis here, and then have the DEC Rainbow sitting on top as the terminal for the 1144, and then we can hop into DOS or CP/M if we want to on it. So this is a machine, I'm really excited about this, this DEC Rainbow. I think it's gonna be awesome paired up with the 1144. Now, in the previous episode, we talked about some storage solutions for the 1144. I have since learned a lot more about storage types for it. The RL01 and RL02 could theoretically work with the 1144, but I don't actually have the control card for those. So an RL01 or RL02 would be unusable on this machine because finding a unibus control card is probably harder than finding an RL01 or RL02. Now, I believe it can use an RA60, an RA80, or an RA81. Those are the standard interface device, I think is what it's called. But I can also use an RA70, which is a 5 1/4 hard drive with the control card that I have. And I have 2 RA70s that I got in that collection of hard drives, which makes sense. Those were probably the drives that were actually used with the 1144 that I got. So the current plan is to use 2 RA70s, 2 TU58 tape drives, the little DEC Tape 2 drives, and then have 2 8-inch floppies, the full height 8-inch Shugart floppies. And that'll be the storage options that we use to kind of fill out this space right here, which brings us to the next question of what are we doing with the BA23 chassis that are in here? And I am gonna fill these out, but I'm actually not gonna keep them because there's something very, very, very special that I'm extremely excited about that I am hopefully going to trade these for. So I don't want to spoil it and I don't want to jinx it, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But ultimately these BA23 chassis are not going to stay here, which means that I still need to build up a QBus system of my own, and that's what we're going to use the VAX Station Tower for. This is the VAX Station 3200, but I'm not going to build it up as a VAX. I'm going to build it up as a PDP-11. It turns out that VAXs and late model PDP-11s, the micro PDPs, share so much in common that you can really kind of build it up however you want. This uses an H9278 backplane, which is the exact same backplane that came in the 2 BA23 chassis that originally had the 1183 in it. So I can build this up as an 1183, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. That backplane is a QCD backplane for the top 3 3 slots, and then the remaining slots are all QQ slots. And it's a 9-slot backplane, so we're going to put the 1183 and the 2 PMI memory cards in the top 3 slots, and then we'll fill out the rest with the BOMIM DEB41 and the Matrox QRGB, as well as some drive control stuff. And then we'll plug all of that into the Princeton multi-sync monitor that I got, as well as the BOMIM keyboard, and we'll have ourselves a extremely powerful mobile PDP-11. And well, this is just a single BA-23 chassis stood up on its side and kind of a custom case here, and it's really heavy as is. So I think if I had built out the other 2 BA-23 chassis into kind of like its own server rack, I wouldn't have been able to lift it. It'd have been too heavy for me to carry around. So for a mobile PDP-11, I think this is actually going to work a little better. And the fact that we can pretty much pack so much firepower into such a compact case like this is just really exciting to me. So I think this is going to be an awesome system to build out. Now, we do have some other non-PDP-11 related stuff that I'm pretty excited about. So I want to show you some of that right over here. At the last DFW Retro Computing meetup that we went to, where we took the original mini Centurion that had the floppy drive that is now in pieces, I met up with a lot of really amazing people, but one of the people there was really special. That was the new GP. He's a member of the Discord and a member of the Patreon, and he hooked me up with some really cool stuff. Notably, he gave me this NABU personal computer, so we are going to do some NABU stuff. I'm pretty excited about that. I've been eyeing one of these ever since that community really started to take off, but I've been trying to think of kind of unconventional things to do with it, because it is just a pretty standard setup of hardware inside of it. It's just missing storage. And so I think we can do some interesting things, like maybe turning it into a terminal for the Centurion or something like that. But this is something that I'm very excited about. He also hooked me up with a 3D printer. I have never had a 3D printer. We have obviously a CNC mill and a metal lathe, so I'm not unfamiliar with manufacturing weird one-off parts, but everything I've done is always reductive, I guess is what it's called. You remove material to create the object that you want instead of add material to create the object that you want, which is what a 3D printer does. It's additive. So there's so many awesome things that we can build with a 3D printer, and it's all in these boxes right here. It's an Ender 3. So we're just trying to find a good place to set it up so that way it stays nice and clean, and some place where it has good power and I can essentially run it for really long prints. But new GP, thank you so much for this stuff. It's definitely going to be put to use, and it's going to be shown on some upcoming episodes. So the NABU in particular, I'm quite excited about. Now, in the previous episode, we got that massive haul of PDP-11 and back stuff from Mitch, but there was actually something in there that wasn't deck related at all. And that's really unique, and I want to show it to you guys because maybe somebody out there will recognize what it is and have some insight on it. So let me get that down from storage right quick and show it to you. This is the front panel, and I believe all of the cards to a Floating Point Systems FPS 100 arithmetic processor, which I know nothing about. It definitely looks like it was a mini computer of some type. There are some chips on here that I certainly don't recognize, like these big TRW chips, although that TRW might just be like a little heat sink or a nameplate that was glued on, because we can see that one of them has fallen off. There's also some gorgeous looking RAM chips on this memory board over here, but the rest of it looks to be mostly 7400 series logic. I would absolutely love to plug this in and see what it does, but this is all I have. I don't have the backplane or the chassis or anything else. Apparently this was a machine that was getting scrapped, and the boards got saved just in the nick of time, but the backplane unfortunately did not. And so we might be able to reverse engineer what the pinout of the cards is, and if it's just a purely passive backplane, we could theoretically build a new backplane, but we got to know a lot more about these cards and what they're doing and what kind of signals we're expecting to see on the bus before we even kind of try to attempt that. So there's a ton of learning to do about this system. So if anybody knows anything at all about this FPS 100, definitely leave a comment or hit me up on the Discord. I think this would be a really cool machine to get together. And actually, if anybody has one of these and you need these, I would almost rather get these into your hands than try to cobble together some incomplete working system here. So maybe we can make somebody's FPS 100 complete. But I'm gonna hang on to these until I hear more, because they're absolutely gorgeous boards, and I think they're extremely cool. So that was just a brief look at some of the projects that we have going on simultaneously. There's a ton that I didn't mention that I am definitely still going to get into, most notably the vacuum tube computer. I am slowly progressing on that, but I have to be careful when I cut the boards for it, because I have to make sure that there aren't any cats in the garage when I've got the mill running. Otherwise, that could be quite dangerous. So on a day like today where the door's open and I'm not sure where the cats are hiding, I can't start my cut until I figure out where the cats are and get them out of the garage and close it all up. So we're still definitely working on the vacuum tube computer. I've cut up 3 more memory boards that need to be soldered up. I want to get all the memory boards cut up so that way I can start figuring out how to mount everything else to it. There's also a lot of TI-99 stuff that I want to work on. We have the TI-99-4, which is this guy right here. This is not a 4A, this is a genuine 4 that needs full-on restoration, as well as the TI-99 color monitor. If I get both of those fully restored, our entire TI-99 train here will be complete, which that's going to be exciting. I also have another TI-99-4 main board out there with keyboard that I guess is spares. It would be fun to try and put power into it and see if we could maybe get some life out of it after some seriously heavy-duty cleaning. So we have some TI content that we still need to work on. We have some vacuum tube stuff that we still need to work on. I have another vacuum tube project that I've been slowly working on that will get some boards made up for that. So there's a ton of stuff in the pipeline here, but the primary focus right now is just trying to get things finished in time for VCF, most notably the mini Centurion. So that's what I'm going really hard on. So I am gonna shut the camera off and get back to work on that mini Centurion, because it needs a lot of sanding, needs a lot of paint, and then I gotta go buy a 4x8 sheet of MDF and start cutting and ripping, and then I think we can finally start wrapping that project up. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry for the slightly unconventional episode today. Like I said, it's been a crazy week, but thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you in the next episode.